Ethan Cole looked out the tall windows of his office. The city lights flickered below like tiny stars trapped in glass. People saw him as the man who had everything. He ran one of the biggest tech companies in New York. His face was in magazines, and his name was often on the news. But when the reporters stopped talking and the meetings ended, silence filled his world. He had built an empire of success, but could not build peace inside his heart. Two small faces were his only joy. His twins, Noah and Lily, were 6 years old and full of color and noise. Their laughter kept his heart alive. But when the nights came, Ethan missed something more. He missed love that was not about his money or fame. Since his wife's passing 3 years ago, Ethan had thrown himself into work. He told himself that keeping busy would keep the pain away. It did not. His home was big, but felt empty. The walls were decorated with art, but no warmth lived there. The twins had a nanny who cared for them, yet Ethan knew they needed more than care. They needed a mother's heart, and he needed a partner's love. His sister Grace noticed his loneliness. She was bold and full of energy. One Sunday morning, she visited his house and watched him pour cereal for the twins while reading work emails. Grace shook her head. "You promised you would take a break," she said. "I am taking one," Ethan answered without looking up. "You mean a break from sleep, not from work?" she said. She crossed her arms. "Ethan, you need to live again. The kids need it too. I have someone you should meet." He looked up frowning. "Grace, not again. Remember the last time? The woman brought me a business plan before dessert. This is different. Her name is Mia Turner. She is kind, funny, and real. She is a teacher. She will not care about money because she barely has time to spend her own." Ethan laughed for the first time that morning. "A teacher? Huh." Grace nodded firmly. "You are going." "I already told her about a nice guy who works as an office clerk." "I might have skipped your millionaire part." Ethan stared at her. Her smile was too bright to argue with. "You told her I am an office clerk. You want a woman who loves you for who you are, right?" she said. "So why not meet her as you, not as Mr. Cole the millionaire?" Later that night, Ethan thought about her words. Pretending to be poor sounded foolish. Yet maybe foolish was what he needed. He walked into his closet full of expensive suits and touched the fine fabric. These clothes kept people respectful, but distant. Maybe a simple outfit could bring him closer to something real. He pulled out an old pair of jeans from college and a plain shirt. They still fit. He smiled at his reflection. Without the fancy watch and blazer, he looked like an ordinary man. Once it felt right. The next morning, he dropped the twins off at school. Noah shouted that his socks did not match. Lily braided her own hair and told her dad he looked different, like a weekend dad. Ethan laughed. "Maybe I am trying to be one." He stopped by a small cafe near the park, the place Grace said he would meet Mia. He checked his watch and tucked it away, feeling strange for caring about time so much. The smell of roasted coffee filled the air. People chatted softly around him. It was a world away from boardrooms and investors. Mia Turner did not arrive yet. Ethan felt nervous. It had been years since he had gone on a date. He wondered what she looked like. Would she see through him in a second? Would she laugh if she later learned who he really was? Then the door opened, and a breeze followed. Mia stepped inside, holding a book and looking around with a smile that seemed to light the place brighter than the morning sun. Her clothes were simple. Her hair was tied back in a neat ponytail with a messy strand falling over her cheek. She looked natural, kind, and human, in a way Ethan had almost forgotten existed. He raised his hand awkwardly. She walked over, smiling. "You must be Ethan," she said. Her voice was soft, but it had the strength of someone who had weathered rough days and still found reasons to laugh. They shook hands. He meant to say something clever, but ended up knocking over his coffee cup. Hot liquid spilled across the table. He jumped up, spilling sugar in the process. Mia gasped, then laughed. "Well, at least the coffee met me first," she said. Something inside Ethan relaxed. Her laughter did not judge. It welcomed him. He felt lighter than he had in years. As they sat together again, talking about small things like favorite foods and childhood games, Ethan realized how little money mattered in that moment. The city outside kept moving fast, but time inside the cafe slowed down. The first time in a long while, Ethan Cole, the millionaire hiding as a simple man, began to hope again. Ethan sat across from Mia, still embarrassed about the coffee spill. She had handled it with such calm that it almost felt like part of the plan. The waiter brought them new cups, and Mia gave Ethan a small smile that made him laugh at his own nervousness. He could not remember the last time he had been this relaxed around someone new. Mia told him about her job. She taught kindergarten at a public school not far from the city center. She spoke about her students with warmth and pride. She said they sometimes drew on walls and forgot their homework. But they also taught her how to forgive quickly and laugh often. Ethan listened carefully. He shared simple stories too, leaving out the part where his office job was running a global company. He talked about the twins and how they filled his home with noise and crumbs and silly songs. Mia leaned forward. "You have twins? That sounds like a lot of fun and a lot of work." "Both," Ethan said. "They turn the living room into a zoo most days, but I would not trade them for anything." Her eyes softened. "That is beautiful. Kids are the best and the hardest teachers." Her words had a way of touching him. There was no pretense in her tone, no sign she was testing him. She laughed easily and asked questions about things that mattered, not about cars or money. Ethan caught himself studying her hands while she spoke. They looked strong but gentle, the kind of hands that worked hard every day. A man in a suit entered the cafe, greeted Ethan politely, and walked to another table. For a heartbeat, Ethan panicked that Mia might recognize him, but she did not even look up. She was telling a funny story about how one of her students once hid a frog in her desk drawer. Ethan laughed until his shoulders relaxed. Their simple coffee meeting stretched into ours. Outside, the sunlight shifted, drawing a golden hue across the street. At one point, Mia looked at her watch and gasped. "I have to pick up my niece in 20 minutes. She gathered her bag quickly. "I had a really good time, Ethan." "Me too," he said, feeling disappointment at the thought of her leaving. "Can I see you again?" She hesitated for a second but smiled. "Maybe next week. I am free on Friday afternoon." "The same cafe." He nodded at once, unable to hide his grin.
It is.
When she left, Ethan stayed for a moment, staring at the door she had just walked through. Something inside him was different, though he could not name it. I felt almost foolishly happy. Later that evening, back at home, the twins ran to meet him at the door. Noah climbed onto his arm, and Lily started talking about her school play without pausing for breath. Ethan listened, smiling, his thoughts drifting between his children and the woman with the warm laugh. Grace called as he was putting the twins to bed. "So," she asked with great interest, "how did it go? Did she like you as poor Ethan the office worker?" Ethan chuckled softly. "I think she did, and you were not wrong about her. She's different." Grace sounded pleased. "Different is good, so that means real." When the twins were asleep, Ethan sat by the window again. The city lights blinked far below. He thought about how easy it had been to talk to Mia. She was the first person in years who had not looked at him like a business opportunity or a news story. She had looked at him like a person. The thought eased the restlessness he had carried for so long. The next few days passed more slowly than usual. Ethan focused on work, but his mind kept wandering to small details about her smile or her laughter. He planned every part of their next meeting carefully. He would keep the act simple. No driver, no expensive clothes, just himself. The version she had met and liked. Friday arrived, and Ethan felt something close to teenage excitement. He left work early, ignoring confused looks from his assistant. At the cafe, Mia was already waiting at the corner table. This time she wore a red cardigan that matched the warm color of the afternoon light. She waved when she saw him, and he felt his heart skip. They walked together after coffee. She teased him about his clumsy first impression, and he promised he had since learned how to handle coffee cups. She told him about her niece, Chloe, a sweet but shy girl who had lived with her since her sister passed away. Hearing that softened Ethan even more. They both carried grief, but also hope. By the time they reached the park, the twins' favorite playground was in view. Ethan pointed without thinking. "That is where I often bring my kids." Mia smiled wide. "Maybe I will see you here one day." He nodded. "Maybe sooner than you think." That evening he drove home feeling lighter than he had in years. The silence in his car did not feel lonely anymore. For the first time since his wife's death, Ethan had met someone whose kindness reached past the walls he had built around his heart. He was still pretending to be poor, still hiding the truth. But somewhere deep inside, he began to wish he could tell Mia everything. He just did not know what would happen if he did. Saturday morning began with noise in the coal house. Noah was chasing Lily with a toy airplane while the nanny tried to get them both ready for their swimming lesson. Ethan watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, half amused and half exhausted. The twins were small storms with legs. Every day with them was chaos in the most wonderful form. When the nanny finally led them out the door, Ethan sat down and looked at his phone. There was a message from Mia. She had sent a picture of her niece Chloe, drawing a messy rainbow, and a note that said, "We are making art again." The living room is now a disaster. He smiled as he typed back a simple message about how disasters often made the best memories. For the rest of the morning, he could not stop thinking about her. On impulse, he packed a small picnic and drove with the twins to the same park where he had walked with Mia before. It was a sunny day, and the air smelled of cut grass. Children ran along the swings while dogs barked near the fountain. He laid out a blanket, and the twins began feeding crumbs to a group of ducks. "Dad, can we get to baby ducks?" Lily asked. "No," Ethan said, laughing. "They belong here, not in our bathtub." As he said that, a familiar voice answered from behind him. Wise advice. Ducks are terrible roommates. He turned around and saw Mia standing there, holding Chloe's hand.
Oh.
The surprise lifted his heart like a song. "Mia, what are you doing here?" "I should ask you that," she said. "Chloe wanted to come play. Looks like we had the same idea." The twins looked at her with curiosity. Then they looked at Chloe, who was hiding behind Mia's leg. Lily waved first. "Hi, I am Lily, and this is Noah. Do you want to feed ducks with us?" Chloe hesitated but smiled shyly. In a moment, the three children were laughing together, chasing ducks and dropping crumbs everywhere. Mia sat down beside Ethan, and for a while they watched the scene quietly. "They seemed to get along already," Ethan said, proud of how easily his twins could make friends. "Kids are the best at that," Mia replied. "They do not think too hard about who they should talk to. They just do." Ethan nodded, thinking how true that sounded. Adults always carried too much pride and fear, but children simply opened their hearts. After a while, the twins began pulling Mia toward the playground. "Come push us on the swings," Noah shouted.
Ow.
Ethan watched her for a moment, feeling warmth spread through him. She had a natural grace with children. The twins adored her already, and the feeling was mutual. When she returned and sat beside him again, her hair was messy from the wind, and her cheeks were flushed. "They have more energy than a whole class of students," she said with a tired grin. "They will sleep well tonight," Ethan said. "You have no idea how much they love the park." As the afternoon passed, they all shared the picnic. The kids ate sandwiches and fruit while Mia told funny stories about her students. Ethan felt like he was part of something he had missed for too long, a little world filled with laughter and care. For a few hours, he forgot about business meetings, profits, and secrets. When it was time to go, Lily suddenly grabbed Mia's hand. "Miss Mia, will you come play again?" Mia looked at Ethan, unsure. "If your dad does not mind," she said gently. He nodded. "We would like that." On the drive home, the twins talked non-stop about Mia and Chloe. They made plans as if a new family had already formed. Noah said Mia should teach them how to draw like Chloe. Lily said Mia should come to her school play. Ethan listened, smiling but also thoughtful. That night, after the twins fell asleep, he sat in his study, staring out the window. The city looked alive, but his thoughts were somewhere else. He realized Mia had unknowingly stepped into every corner of his life. The twins had accepted her, and he did not want to imagine a day without her laughter. But he also knew every passing moment made his lie heavier. He was not an office clerk. He was a billionaire pretending to live a simpler life. She found out everything might fall apart. Still, he could not regret meeting her. Watching her kindness with his children had shown him what real love looked like. It was quiet and patient and strong enough to heal old wounds. He wanted to protect that, even if it meant carrying the truth a little while longer. In another part of the city, Mia was tucking Chloe into bed. The little girl whispered, "I like Lily and Noah. Can we play again?" Mia smiled down at her and said, "Yes, I think we will." But when she turned off the light, her mind wandered to Ethan. There was something about him that felt different, something both open and closed. She could not explain it, yet she felt drawn to him just the same. That night, two homes that had known loneliness began to feel a little less empty. Neither knew what the future held, but for the first time, hope had found a place to rest. The week passed with long work hours and short nights for Ethan, yet every free moment he found himself thinking about Mia. He looked forward to every message, every call, and every story she shared about her students and Chloe. Her words brightened his days in a way that no award or business deal ever had. When she told him about the charity fair at her school, he listened with interest. It was a weekend event to raise funds for new classroom supplies. She mentioned how parents and teachers would set up small booths with games, food, and art. Ethan had never been part of anything like that before. "Would you like to help?" she asked while they talked one evening. "We always need volunteers." He agreed right away. After he ended the call, he realized that meant spending the day outside lifting boxes, painting signs, and maybe getting covered in glue. The thought made him laugh quietly. It sounded nothing like his usual Saturdays filled with formal meetings and expensive lunches. When Saturday came, he wore simple clothes and arrived early. Mia was already there with paint stains on her hands and a group of children around her. She waved happily when she saw him. "Perfect timing. We need someone tall to hang the banner." He smiled and got to work. They spent the morning setting up tables and decorating the area. He worked with other parents who had no idea who he really was. No one asked about his job or his car. They teased him, thanked him, and treated him like any other helpful man. It felt honest. At noon, the fair began. Children ran around with balloons. There was laughter everywhere. Ethan helped with the ring toss booth. Mia worked nearby at the lemonade stand. Every now and then their eyes met across the crowd, and both smiled without thinking. The twins had come along too, excited to help hand out tickets. Noah spilled lemonade on his shoes. Lily won a small stuffed bear, and everyone was happy. Later in the day, Mia walked over with 2 cups of lemonade for Ethan and smiled. "Look at you. You have paint on your face." Ethan wiped his cheek, laughing. "That is the cost of art. You look more relaxed than when I first met you," she said. "Maybe it is this place. Or maybe it is the company," he said softly. There was something in her eyes when she looked at him then, something gentle but curious. The sound of a child calling her name broke the moment. She turned to help and left him standing there feeling an emotion he could hardly name. In the evening, after all the children had gone home and the booths were half cleared, a string of fairy lights hung above the empty tables. Ethan and Mia stayed behind to help clean up. She was laughing as she tried to pull tape off a wooden post. He stepped close and helped her without speaking. For a brief second, their hands touched. It was a small moment, but both felt a quiet rush inside. They sat down to rest. The sky had turned deep orange, and the fairgrounds looked peaceful. She spoke about her dream to open a small learning center for children who struggled in regular classrooms. She wanted a place filled with patience and creativity, not pressure. Ethan listened without interruption. "That is a wonderful dream," he said after a pause. "It will take years and a lot of money," she said with a little laugh. "But one day I will try." Ethan almost told her that money was something he could easily provide. He could have funded her entire dream without noticing the cost, but he stopped himself. If he said that, he would have to explain everything and risk losing what they had, so he only said, "You will make it happen, I can tell." They talked a little longer until the sound of crickets filled the air. Mia looked up at the lights and said softly, "I like this moment. It feels simple and real." "It does," Ethan said. "More real than anything I have felt in a long time." Before they parted, she thanked him for helping at the fair. He offered to walk her to her car. When they reached it, she turned and said, "Ethan, I am glad we met." He smiled. "Me too." Driving home that night, Ethan felt both joy and fear. Joy, because he was falling in love. Fear, because he knew it was built on a lie. He promised himself he would tell her the truth soon. Yet part of him was afraid that when he did, her kind eyes would turn away. At her home, Mia leaned against her car and thought about him for a long time before going inside. She could not explain why being around Ethan felt so peaceful. He was careful when he talked about his past, but he never hid his care for others. She felt safe with him in ways she had not felt for years. Both went to bed that night, thinking of the same thing. The fair had brought them closer, and something deep had begun to grow between them. Neither knew that the truth, still waiting in silence, would soon test everything they were beginning to build together. The morning began like any other. Mia was walking to school with a cup of hot coffee and a list of tasks in her hand. She stopped at a shop window and almost dropped the cups. A large advertisement filled the glass. It showed Ethan's face next to bold letters that read Cole Technologies Annual Business Summit. The photo was clear. The man in the picture was the same one who had spilled coffee on her, painted banners at the fair, and pretended to be an ordinary office worker. A rush of confusion and anger swept through her. She walked on quickly, her heart beating fast. All day, her thoughts raced. Every word he had said replayed in her mind. Every simple gesture now felt like part of an act. It was hard to focus on her students as they read aloud or practiced their songs. By the time school ended, she could no longer hold back her feelings. She sent him a message telling him to meet her after work. Ethan arrived at the cafe first. He sensed something was wrong as soon as he saw her face. She looked calm, but her eyes carried disappointment. "Ethan Cole," she said carefully, placing her bag on the table. "So that is your full name." He froze. There was no point pretending now. "You found out?" "You lied to me," she said. "You told me you were an office clerk. I never wanted to lie to you," he said softly. "I only wanted to meet someone who saw me as a man, not a millionaire." She looked away. "You had all this time to tell me the truth. You had 100 chances, Mia. I was afraid. Every time I tried, I looked at you and the kids and felt like I finally belonged somewhere. I did not want to lose that. But it was never real," she said, shaking her head. "You made me believe you were living a simple life like me. You let me think I knew you." "I meant every word I said to you," he answered. "My feelings were never fake." Mia's voice broke a little. "Then why couldn't you trust me with the truth?" He had no answer that sounded right. The silence between them spoke louder than anything else. People in the cafe continued their quiet conversations, unaware that his world was falling apart. "I need some time," she said at last. "This is too much." She grabbed her bag and walked out, leaving him sitting there alone. Ethan did not call her again that night. He drove home in silence. The twins ran to greet him, full of stories about their day, but he could barely smile. When they asked why he looked sad, he said he was just tired. After they went to bed, he sat in the dark living room and thought about what he had done. His choice to hide the truth had taken away the one person who made him feel alive again. For the next few days, everything at his company went on as usual. Meetings, deals, reports, all moved forward. But he felt disconnected from it all. Grace noticed. "Did you tell her the truth?" she asked one evening. "She found out on her own," he said quietly. Grace sighed. "You should have told her. She deserved honesty, I know. I thought I could control everything, but I was wrong." Down the street, Mia was also struggling. Chloe asked her why she looked sad, and Mia said she was just tired, though her heart ached inside. She wanted to believe Ethan cared, but her trust was shattered. She could not stop thinking about how icily he had hidden such a big part of his life. Days turned into weeks. One afternoon, Mia stayed late at school to help organize art supplies. A teacher brought her an envelope from the mailroom. Inside was a donation notice. Her school's charity, which supported children in need, had just received a large anonymous donation. The note said simply, "For the children, from someone who still believes in you." She stared at it for a long moment. There was no name, but her heart knew. Ethan must have done it. She felt a wave of mixed emotions, sadness, gratitude, confusion. He had hurt her, but he also cared enough to help without asking for credit. That night, she took Chloe to the park. As they sat on a bench, she watched children play under the fading light. She remembered the fair, the laughter, the paint on Ethan's face. Maybe the man who had lied about his job was still the same person who had comforted her niece and played with the twins. Maybe his mistake came from fear, not cruelty. At the same time, Ethan was at home reading a bedtime story to Noah and Lily. They asked when they would see Mia again. He told them gently, maybe someday. After they were asleep, he went to his office and looked at a picture of the fairground that someone had taken. In the picture, Mia was caught mid-laugh, her face bright and open. He touched the frame and whispered, "I am sorry." Both of them lay awake that night in different homes, thinking about what had been lost and wondering if it was too late to find it again. The truth had finally come to light, and while it had hurt them both, it also uncovered something deeper. Real love could not hide behind lies, but maybe it could survive them, if both hearts still cared enough to try.